Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima tu'allimuna wa zidna bi fadlika ilman wa ta'liman innaka ala kulli shay'in qadir. So the author, may Allah show him tremendous mercy, he says, Babu rajuli yabi'u ba'd al-thamari kasra wa yastathni ba'dah. So a man selling some fruit and excluding some from the sale. Says أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا عبد الله ابن أبي بكر ibn Abi Hazm, I believe, right? This is Muhammad, yeah. عن أبيه أن محمد ibn Amr ibn Hazm. So this is the person from the same family, right? So he's narrating from his father, from like his uncle or his grandfather, something like that. باء حائطا له يقال له الأفراق ب4,000 درهم واستثنى منه ب800 درهم تمرا. Malik informed us from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr, who informed us from Muhammad, from his father, that Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Hazm sold a walled garden. So they call it ha'it, literally a wall, meaning an orchard. Okay, an orchard. So he sold the land and the fruits inside it. Right? He sold the whole thing. Everything is included, right? For 4,000 dirhams, excluding the sale of 800 dirhams worth of dates. So why are we using dirhams for dates? Is that a weight or is that a value?
Value.
Value, right? So that's interesting because then you say, well, how much am I selling the dates for? Right? Because so the point here is that he's making an exclusion. So can you do that, right? I'm selling you my whole house, but not this chair. That's fine, right? Because it's known. Okay. The concern here is, what does he mean by, like, how many dates would that be, depending how much you're going to sell the dates for? Wallahu alam, right? So that's the only issue there. Wallahu alam. Excluding the sale of 800 dirhams worth of dates. So then the issue as well would be what was, we had the whole discussion about selling fruits. So the issue would be, are you selling them as they are now? Because if you're selling them as they are now, are you plucking them now? Or are you going to wait till later on? Right? So that whole same discussion, that's why it's relevant to the discussion from last week. It's the same issue. The reality of the thing. What is this thing? Right? So we have to know what it is. Right? So the same issue is like when you say 800 dirhams, that's a value. What is the price for these dates? Because then I don't know how many dates that is. What if you're going to sell one date for 800 dirhams? What if you're going to, I don't know. So things have to be clear. That's the point. Wallahu alam. So there's, some issues there. So he says, next hadith, أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا أبو الرجال عن أمه عمرة بنت عبد الرحمن أنها كانت تبيع ثمارها وتستثني منها. Malik informed us for Abu Rijal, he informed us from his mother Amra bint Abdurrahman that she used to sell her fruit and exclude some from the sale. Right? So all of this apart from this. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا رب. So here this is so who is this Amra? This is the student of Aisha radiallahu anha, right? She frequently narrates from Aisha. Right, so the assumption here is, here's this lady who has been telling us fiqh from Aisha all these years. Presumably she knows about fiqh, right? That's the point. That's why he's citing her, right? أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا ربيعة بن عبد الرحمن عن القاسم بن Muhammad. What's Qasim Muhammad's relationship to Aisha? So Malik from Rabi'a ibn Abdurrahman, that Qasim ibn Muhammad, what's his relationship to Aisha?
Nephew.
Nephew. Yes, that is correct. Or half nephew, right? So Muhammad Qasim, the son of Muhammad. Muhammad is the half brother of Aisha. So that is nephew. That is correct, right? And who is Muhammad's mother?
Sorry, your question again?
Who was Muhammad? So Qasim ibn Muhammad.
Muhammad
Muhammad,
bin Abi Bakr.
yes, and his mother
Uh, was it Asma?
Ma bint Umays. Asma bint Umays, who was the wife of,
Ja'far radiallahu anhu.
and then
And then Abi Bakr.
Sayyidina Abu
Abu
Bakr,
Bakr.
and then
Sayyidina Ali
Sayyidina Ali.
radiallahu anhu.
So this Muhammad was basically the son of Sayyidina Abu Bakr slash the son of Sayyidina Ali, right? Qasim raised by Aisha, right? And so this is the great Qasim in Muhammad, right? So he used to. So now, what's the point is this is Qasim Muhammad. Okay, who's he? I don't know who he is. Oh, this is the nephew of Aisha that was raised by Aisha, and obviously is a faqih because she grew up in the house of Aisha. He grew up in the house of Aisha, right? He used to sell and exclude some of it. قال محمد هذا نأخذ لا بأس بأن يبيع رجل ثمره ويستثني بعضه إذا استثنى شيئا من جملته ربعا أو خمسا أو سدوسا. We adhere to this. This is there's no harm in a man selling his fruit and excluding some of it if he excludes something specific from the wholesale, a quarter, a fifth, or a sixth. Okay. باب ما يكره من بيع التمر بالرطب. What is disproved of in the sale of dry dates for fresh dates? What's the problem here?
Um, it's not the same type. It's not the same type.
So when I sell dry dates for fresh dates, that is like
Yeah.
exchanging. That's like I'm going to get a bunch of like a whole box of old gold jewelry that's all mashed up, like this all melted down, mixed with bits of other things in it, and I'm going to exchange it for gold bullion, right? Can I do that?
Yeah. No, because it
I
needs to
need to
be
know
pure.
that the weight of the gold is the same.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, yeah.
You can't do that. I'm going to exchange 24 karat gold for 21 karat gold. You got to be careful now. I need to know that the gold is the same. Can't do that. So when I'm exchanging dates for dates, same thing. Dates for dates, I need to know that the dry dates are the same. Is that the case? I don't know. So you can't do that. Right? You cannot exchange that.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Dates for dates, can it be ajwa for something else like
No,
majdur,
so you
something?
can't. What you can't. So this is exactly what happened for Sayyidina Bilal. Sayyidina Bilal was like, Ya Rasulullah, mashallah, the market's really, really good. Right? I don't know if you saw that recently, Muhammad. They said there was some people, was it 3.25? They said, soon the exchange rate between the Singapore dollar and the ringgit, Malaysian will be 3.25 or 3.5 or something, right? And it's going to be really good for Malaysia. Like Malaysia's economy is growing, right? So Sayyidina Bilal was talking about that, saying, "Ya Rasulullah, mashallah, the market's really good. We exchange these dates, like that aren't very good, for twice of the other ones, which are good, right?" And the Prophet said, "Oh, riba, riba." And Sayyidina Bilal was confused, like, how is that riba, right? Because it's just that different worth, right? These dates are worth more than those dates, so we don't exchange them in weight for weight. So the Prophet said, don't do that. That's riba. You can't do that. You have to sell the bad quality dates for cash and get the cash to buy the good quality dates. Okay, so dates for dates, even if they're different category, right? They have to be equal for equal, right? Why? Allahu alam. Okay, but it's called bay' riba. So riba al-bay' riba that applies to sales. So we all agree gold for gold or silver for silver or dollar for dollar, etc. So that's easy. The issue is then what is the consideration? So the Shafi'is, we say food. So melons for melons. You can't exchange unless they're the same. Uh, potatoes for potatoes. You can't do that, right? That's the Shafi school. The Maliki school is storable food. So dates are storable food. Wheat is storable food. Melons are not storable foods. You can do that. You can do whatever you want. Exchange poor, these two farmers, they both want to have a stall where they, I grow these vegetables, you do those vegetables, we sell in different places. So let's just exchange fruit for fruit. So you could exchange melon for melon, it doesn't matter. It's not a problem. You can do whatever you want, right? For the Malikis, because the issue is not food, it's storable food. And for the Hanafis, they say the issue is two things. One, currency, so gold, silver, and currencies. That's one consideration. The other consideration is things sold in weight or volume. So flour is sold in weight, right? Crude oil is sold in volume. Okay, so I'm going to exchange crude oil for crude oil. Can I exchange it like that? They have to be the same. If they're not the same volume, can't do that, right? Iron for iron. I give you rusty iron for normal iron. You can't do that. In the Shafi school, we could do that. I can go in, for example, I have a truck that has 10, burnt, collapsed cars, and I get, for example, they give me iron. They give me a chunk, a nice clean piece of iron, and I give them, I give them all these broken down cars, right? You cannot exchange 24, no, 22 for 24, 48, no. So you're going to have to sell the 22, cash, and go 24, yeah. Okay. So that's the issue here. So it says, أخبرنا مالك قال أخبرنا عبد الله ابن يزيد مولى الأسود بن سفيان أن زيدا أبا عياش مولى لبني زهرة أخبره أنه سأل سعد بن أبي وقاص عمن اشترى البيضاء بالسلط فقال له سعد أيهما أفضل؟ قال البيضاء قال فنهاني عنه وقال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سئل عن من اشترى التمر بالرطب فقال أينقص الرطب إذا يبس قالوا نعم فنهى عنه. So Malik informed us that Abdullah ibn Yazid, the Mawla of Al-Aswad ibn Sufyan, the freed slave, right, informed us from Zayd Abu Ayyash, the freed slave of Bani Zuhra, informed him that Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, that asked Sa'd ibn Waqqas about someone who bought ordinary barley for another variety of barley, right? So Sa'd said, which of the two are better? He answered, the ordinary barley. He said, he forbade me to do that. And he said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being asked about someone who bought dried dates for fresh dates. And he asked, does the fresh date shrink when it dries? Do you think the Prophet knows the answer to that question?
Um, Likely.
Right? Or very likely, right? He lives in Medina, for crying out loud, right? He lives in Medina. They have dates. It's a thing that they deal with, right? It's a normal thing. So the Prophet ﷺ is asking a question, not because he doesn't know the answer, because he wants to teach the questioner to understand why. Okay? So he says, you're exchanging this for this. Does it shrink, i.e., the volume becomes less? So we're looking at volume here, exchanging the volume of dates for volume of fresh dates. Okay, does it shrink? The answer is yes. So would you know that it's the same volume? You wouldn't. So he answered, yes. So he forbade it. Why? Because you don't know that it's the same volume. Okay? So the same thing with 22 karat gold for 24 karat gold. You're exchanging the two of them. They're not the same. You didn't exchange. So a gram of 22 karat gold and a gram of 24 karat gold does not have the same amount of gold in it. Right? So it's it has a fraction less, right? 24 karat gold is 100% gold. 22 karat gold is what's 22 over 25 is like 16% less, right? So it's about 80 to 85% gold, right? Is that right? No, it's not 80. It's like 90% gold, sorry. So 1 gram of 24 karat golds is about 0.9 grams. 1 gram of 24 karat gold is probably like 1.1 grams of 22 karat gold. Okay, so you need to know that it's the same. That's the point. So if you don't know it's the same, you cannot do that. And again, we repeat, what is the illah here? So we agree on money. Money is one thing. Money slash gold slash silver, that's one category. What is the other category? The Shafis, we say, oh, here the issue was food, right? It is food. Malikis, it's storable food. Hanafis, it's something that's sold in volume. Something that's sold in volume for something else that's sold in volume of the same category, it has to be the same thing. So dates and fresh dates of the same category has to be the same volume. If you don't know it's the same volume, you can't do that. Okay, make sense? And so the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us there's such a thing called analogy. How is he teaching us? By asking the question, right? What about this? What about that? Right? Have you considered this? Right? Somebody kissed his wife, okay, in Ramadan. And so he said, if you put some water in your mouth and spat it out, would it break your fast? He said, no. Okay, there we go. You know your answer then. Does it make sense? Like the Prophet ﷺ is helping the Sahaba understand why. What is the reason why? Okay. So قال محمد وبهذا نأخذ لا خير في أن يشتري الرجل قفيز رطب بقفيز من تمر يدا بيد لأن الرطب ينقص إذا جف فيصير أقل من قفيز فلذلك فسد البيع فيه. Muhammad said we adhere to this. There is no good in a man buying a measure of 12 sa'. So he calls it qafiz, right? A sa' is about 2 liters. So we're talking about a volume here. We're not talking about a weight, right? So a sa' is 12. So 24. For example, somebody sells 24 sa' 24 liters of dates for 25 liters of dried dates. It's not the same volume. Right, it's not the same thing because when it dries, it changes. So even if it was hand to hand, even if it was immediate, like you couldn't do that because the fresh dates shrink when they dry and so become less than the measure of 12 sa'. It is for that reason that the sale is corrupt, right? Can't do that. It's an invalid contract. So babu ma lam yuqbal min ta'am, we did this already. Okay. So then he says, باب الرجل يبيع المتاع غيره نسيئة ثم يقول انقدني وأضع عنك. So a man who sells goods or something to a deferred term. Okay, so I'm going to sell you these bricks now. Okay, for a higher price, right? Because you don't have cash. That's fine. You don't have the cash. So I'm selling you to these bricks now, so you can build your wall, and you're going to pay me in a year. Okay, and I'm going to charge, for example, 140%. So notice there's ways around riba. Okay, so I need to build a wall. Okay, Adib is going to pay me to build a wall. I need bricks. I don't have cash. I work day by day. I don't have the cash. So I need to go and get an interest loan in order to buy these bricks so that I can get this work. Otherwise, I can't get the work and I can't get the money. There's another way around it. I go to the brick company and I say, hey, I need this, right? Let me pay 140% of the price in a year, right? So as long as it's not on a sliding scale, right? As long as it's not going to change, it is a fixed price. You are making more money out of me than you would normally make, okay? But you are giving me credit. You are letting me pay later on. That's totally fine, right? Totally fine. So the normal way that a car is sold is here's this new Toyota, whatever it is, okay? Customer goes to the bank, says, "Give me a loan," pays the bank pays the car, the car guy in cash, and then there is a loan which will increase or decrease depending on when you pay it off. Okay? That's called interest. But it's totally fine to go to the shop and say, "Hey, right? I will pay you 200% of the price. I need a car right now. I'll give you I'll pay you 200% of the price in a year. Just give me the car now. It's $25,000. I'll give you $50,000 in 1 year." It's like selling two cars. You just sold two cars instead of one car, right?
Sheikh,
So
but how does that make it okay?
that's fine because it's not interest. So interest is renting out money. That's what it is. So you can rent out a house. Like you have a house, it's worth $1 million, and you rented it out and for a week, and they gave you some money, and now you still have $1 million house, and you have more money. That's fine, but you cannot rent out money. So in a loan, you're renting out money. I'm giving you $1 million, and you're going to give me a little bit back, the money back. So you cannot rent out money, but you can rent out things. So similarly, here this is fine. You can, I'm not happy to sell you these bricks for the normal price because I need the money because you're benefiting because you're going to pay me in a year, but I'm happy to make more money if you pay me back in a year. That's fine. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Mhm. So there's many ways around things. So one thing, for example, one thing that people say is interest is haram because the wealthy get more wealthy. So here's a question: does Islam prohibit the wealthy becoming more wealthy? No, it doesn't. Right? You have a house and I don't. You have two houses and I don't have a house. So now I'm renting the house from you and I'm working hard and you're working less. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that rizq that you have two houses. I do not have a house. I am renting the house from you. So, and now I can't buy a house because I'm paying rent. And you have two houses, and now you can buy a third house because you have money coming in, right? So there's nothing wrong in Islam in principle with the wealthier becoming more wealthy and the poor becoming more poor to a limit, which is now, okay, I now cannot get by. I am now zakat eligible. That's fine. I am zakat eligible. So the Sharia comes along and says, no, everybody has to have a basic thing. But there's nothing, we are not communists, right? We're not socialists, right? Some people, in the 60s and 70s, they tried to make Islam sound, oh, we are we're with Russia, we're communists, we're socialists. We're not. It's not true. There is such thing as private property. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَكُمْ خَلَائِفَ خَلَائِفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَرَزَقَ بَعْضَكُمْ وَرَفَعَ بَعْضَكُمْ فَوْقَ بَعْضٍ دَرَجَاتٍ لِيَبْلُوكُمْ فِي مَا آتَاكُمْ. Right? He is the one who has made you come one after another. Your parents came, then you came, and then your kids turned, time after time, and has raised some of you in the worldly things much above others. Some people have an intellect that other people don't have. Some people have looks that other people don't have. Some people have talents that other people don't have. Some people have money that other people don't have. Some people have property. This kid has never worked in his life. He just inherited property. The agent looked after it. The kid just did nothing, right? Some people have deen that other people don't have, right? This person cannot focus in the prayer at all. This person cannot not focus in prayer, right? SubhanAllah, this is risk, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that as long as we keep to the Sharia. So the Sharia does not prohibit wealthy people becoming more wealthy. It's not true. Similarly, polygamy, right? We're talking about polygamy. Polygamy is unfair to women, right? Why do I have to share my husband with some other woman, right? In reality, it's unfair to men as well. Why is it that he can have 4 wives and I can't get married? Right? Or at least, right? Why is it that he can have 4 wives? He can afford to have 4 wives and I can't, right? So this is called risk, right? This is called risk, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives different things and you're not stealing from anybody. This is what Allah gave you. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you the financial ability or the emotional ability or whatever it is, right? Why is it my little sister got married before me? You know, why is it like I have, she's better looking than me, right? Why is that this risk, right? It happens. Why is it that I can't have any kids and they can have kids? So there's nothing, now not only did you have kids, you also had grandchildren, and I have no grandchildren. That's not fair. It is fair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts a risk, and so it's like that, right? As long as we're not cheating people, as long as people have their basics that they are surviving and they're not being harmed, right? In many places, people are being harmed. May Allah protect us, right? I remember somebody asking that question. They said, how little can you pay people, right? So we have, Sister Amina Sayyid, you're here in Pakistan, Muhammad Sabir, you're in Singapore, right? Or I'm here in Malaysia. There's a phenomenon that you don't find in the West, right? A phenomenon you don't find in the West, which is the working class. Like the working class, is there a minimum wage in Malaysia for in Singapore for a non-Singapore person?
There isn't a minimum wage even for Singaporeans.
Yeah. So this is where the Sharia could come in and say, right, like you could have somebody come in, right, come into your house, do this, do this, do this, do this. This guy's be like 5 men working on your garden building, and you paid them like that much. I knew people in South Africa asked that question, like it's so unbelievably cheap because people are so poor, right? So issues, for example, like the Sharia enforcing, like the Khalifa enforcing minimum wage, saying, look, you can't pay people that much because that's not enough to live on, right? They wouldn't be able to do anything with that, right? That is something, but I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, the company was doing well. The guy needed to build the wall. He didn't have the cash. I have cash and I have raw materials. You don't have cash or raw materials. So now I sell to you for twice the price because you're going to pay me in 6 months. And that's fine. So the wealthier became more wealthy and the poor became more poor, right? And that's okay. It's not actually a problem. Some of the Sahaba were very, very wealthy. Some of the Sahaba were very, very poor, right? As long as we keep people above the bare minimum. Wallahu a'lam. Okay, so it says, where were we? So أخبرنا, no, we didn't. أخبرنا مالك أخبرنا أبو الزناد عن بسر بن سعيد عن أبي صالح بن عبيد مولى السفاح أنه أخبره أنه باع بزا من أهل نخلة إلى أجل، ثم أرادوا الخروج إلى كوفة فسألوه أن ينقدوه ويضع عنهم، فسأل زيد بن ثابت فقال لا أمرك أن تأكل ذلك ولا تؤكله ولا توكله. You can say both. So it says, Malik informed us that Abu Zinad informed us from Busr ibn Sa'id that Abu Salih ibn Ubaid, the freed slave of As-Saffah, informed him that he sold some buzz, right? Buzz is I think it's a form of silk, some material. I think it's silk. So he sold garments to the people of a nakhla, okay, to be paid for in a later time. So when you sell, okay, a loan, you don't have to give a fixed time. It's sunnah to do that, but you don't have to do that. You should loan somebody money. They're like, please, I need to borrow $100. Sure. Right? You don't have to stipulate it, right? But if you sell something to somebody to be paid later, you have to stipulate it, right? You have to stipulate it. So I'm selling you this car, pay off whenever you want. You can't do that actually. So like, I'll pay you with this time. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Go. Like, the trade, he's just generous. Like, pay me whenever you can. I don't care. Right? That's actually haram. You're just trying to be nice, but that's actually haram. You can't do that. Right? So if you want to be nice, say pay me in 20 years. Okay, sure. 20 years from today's date? Okay. 5th of November, 20 years from now, fine. So practically speaking, you said pay me whenever you want, but you have to stipulate a time. You cannot just leave it open like that. Muhammad, you had a question?
But that if you're lending someone, could you not stipulate a time? Could you say, you can just give me back whenever you want?
Yeah, so with a loan, it is charity and you're not obliged to stipulate a time. Okay? And in reality, before the court, you could just claim it whenever you want. So I lend you $10,000 and I say, pay me back in 6 months. Okay? I can actually claim it to you from right now. So you took the $10,000, you spent it, and I say, I want it now. And you have other funds, for example. Let's say you had $30,000, you needed to buy something else. You need that cash for something. So now I say, no, I want it now. You said, Habibi, you said 6 months. I said, that doesn't matter. Right? According to the majority of scholars, for the loan, A, you don't have to stipulate a time. B, you can reclaim it whenever you want. So I could take you to court now and say, you have liquid funds, I want them. I want my money now. And you say, look, I have a piece of paper, 2 witnesses that said stipulated time. I said, that means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Right? The Malikis, yes, they say that is legally binding. Majority of scholars say it's not legally binding. That doesn't mean anything. You can collect it now. That's with a loan. But with a sale, you have to stipulate the time. Right? Even if you don't mind when it comes back. Right? They're like, oh, hey, I need to rent a place. I'm actually looking for work right now. They're like, don't worry, just pay rent whenever you want. Haram, you cannot do that. Cannot do that. You tell them, that's fine, but just to keep it halal, I'm going to stipulate that you have to pay rent by next year. Okay? Or 5 years. Whatever you want to put, you have to put something there. So in a sale, when it's to be paid later on, and you do not stipulate when, that is naha Rasulullah sallallahu an bay'in gharar, that is vagueness that the Prophet forbade. You cannot do that. So that's not generosity, that's crossing the lines. You can't do that. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they have a phrase I don't know what it is in French, but in Switzerland they have a phrase, good finance makes good friends. Like when you're very crystal clear about finance, very, very crystal clear, annoyingly clear, it keeps friends because you don't have any misunderstandings. But if you're very loose and very Eastern, right? Very Eastern about things, it's not actually good. So Easterners often feel very cold. Like if you start being very technical about them with like money, it feels cold. Like, hey, I'm your friend, bro. What's your problem? Like, why are you talking to me like this? Right? And they feel it's cold, but it's good, right? And particularly between which two people? Who should you be the clearest with finance? Because it's the most important relationship.
Paul?
Your spouse, yeah, your spouse. And then second, your brothers and sisters, right? Very clear. Emotions were feeling one way, oh, it's okay, right? And then it's like, no, what's going on? Keep it very, very clear. Very, very clear. You're staying in your wife's house, right? She owns the house. You're staying there, right? In her mind, you were going to start paying rent by this time. In her mind, it was free because of these reasons. But those reasons don't exist. So now in her mind, you now have to pay. 5 years later, you have 1,000 arguments. Do not do that. Keep it very, very clear. Write it down. This I do not have to pay. You're telling me I can stay in your house. This belongs to you. You inherited it from your granddad. It's your house, and we're staying in it for free. Is that right? Yes. Month by yeah, I'm staying for free. Stay, no misunderstandings. You want me to pay rent? How much rent? When do I have to pay it? Okay. It's much better to have an awkward feeling from your spouse that they're very cheap, that they are very nitpicky. It's better to have that feeling now than to feel a horrible feeling later on when everybody feels cheated and lied to and misunderstandings come out and everything falls apart. Right? So it's very important. Clarity is important. What is the difference between a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship and a marriage? Clarity. That's what it is. Define this relationship. Right? Define this relationship. If we had a child, whose child would it be? And who's responsible to feed it? If tomorrow, who's responsible to feed me? Okay. That's the relationship. It doesn't matter if they have a child or not. It doesn't matter if she doesn't want any money from him. It's fine. The point is they have a clear relationship. Everything is clear. Clarity is very important in the deen, right? And unfortunately, in the East, they don't like clarity. They like to have emotions, right? And it's nice, right? It's nice. These emotions, this kind of family, we're not like that. But that's actually it can be very dangerous. So that's where the Sharia is. La sharqiyya wa la gharbiyya. It's neither Eastern nor Western, right? It's not, it's important. Okay. Then they wanted to leave to Kufa. So I want to collect my debts now because I'm going to leave. And so they asked to be able to pay him in cash, and that he would reduce the price for them. We're going to leave now. We're going to pay you early, but we're not going to pay you the amount that we were going to pay you, right? So again, the man buys the bricks for twice the price to be paid next year. Is that halal? It's halal. So then he says, hey, I have the money early. Okay, I have the money early. Can I pay? Can I give you less profit because I'm paying it early? No, cannot do that. So the price is fixed now. That's it. Price is fixed. You bought the house with an Islamic mortgage. The sale is that you're buying the house. The value of the house is valued at $1 million. The bank paid the initial owner for $1 million. Now they're selling you the house for $2.5 million to be paid within 30 years. And these are the installments. That's it. That's a fixed amount. Suddenly you get $1.5 million and you go to the bank and say, listen, I have $1.5 million. I will pay for the house now. They say, fine, give us $2.5 million. I said, no, I'm not going to pay you $2.5 million. That was after 30 years that I'm going to pay you $2.5 million. I'm not going to pay you $2.5 million. Like you get your money early. Accept the money early and drop the price. Haram. Cannot do that. Okay? Cannot do that. What you can do is the bank can just voluntarily overlook it. That's fine. Bank can do that voluntarily. But if it's stipulated in the contract, so you're buying this car with a halal murabaha contract. You're buying this house with a halal murabaha contract, and it stipulates that if the purchaser pays the bank early, they will reduce it by this much. If it's stipulated, that's riba. It's haram. You can't do that. So you cannot increase the debt because it's late, nor can you decrease the debt because it's late. Okay? You just sell X for Y for this date. That's it. If you want to pay early, that's fine. But that's the value. That's what I sold you the house for $2.5 million, and that's what it is. Okay, so Sister Amina. Is it Sister Amina or Sister Amina? Okay. Inshallah, I'll find out in a second. So, can you hear me? Okay. So, an important concept, okay? A will that is not signed or is not made verbally does not mean anything. Okay? Doesn't mean anything. A promise also does not mean anything. Okay? Doesn't mean anything. Okay? Promise does not mean anything. The only thing that means something is a real will that you said, I say this now, I hereby leave this phone for Adib, Shams, etc. Right? That's a will when I die, whatever, as an example. Or they give it to you. So your husband gave you something while he was alive and before he was critically sick. Okay, before he's critically sick, 5 years before he passes away, may Allah show him mercy, he gives you something. He says, here you go, here's a phone, here's a ring, here is some property, and here is the key, so that you have the full legal and practical ability to use that property as you see fit. He gave you the property, gave you the key, you could rent it out, you could sell it, you can do whatever you want. Okay? So, the issue then is the issue that did that. So the issue is if there's no gift happening while the person's alive, A, and B, the will is not signed or is not he didn't verbally say those words, okay, then it doesn't mean anything. Now, it would be out of respect for the child to do that. The child doesn't want to be respectful, that's fine. Does that make sense? So this is a classic thing that happens all the time. Classic thing that happens all the time. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Good finance makes good money. And I'll just pause the recording a second. So anyway, it's a classical situation that happens all the time. And that's why good finance is important between family, right? Oh yeah, I paused it for a reason, I told you. So you cannot do that. They wanted to leave, so they said, we'll pay you in advance, pay in advance, and we will and reduce the price. They asked Zayd ibn Thabit, so this is the faqih, right? We know that the Maliki school is the school of Zayd ibn Thabit, Aisha, and Ibn Umar, right? So this is an example here. They asked Zayd ibn Thabit, the Mufti of Medina, Sahabi, and he said, I advise you not to consume that. I advise you not to consume that, nor that you give it to someone else to consume. It's haram to do both, right? Either sides are going to be haram. The draft for will got drafted but not signed. It was clear to all, but my son has denied it. I have to go. Okay. So there's two things, sister. One is the court, and the one is between you and him and Allah, right? So I might give you something, for example, okay? I lend you a pen, and then I say, oh, sister, can I have it back? And you're like, what pen? I'm like, the pen I just gave you. You're like, what pen? So now how am I going to get that pen back? So I can forgive you. That's fine. So steal my pen, I don't mind. But the court system is going to be like this. I'm going to go to court and they're going to say, Fareed, show me your evidence that you own that pen. I say, I have none. So they say, Sister Amina, swear by Allah that it's your pen. And you say, I swear by Allah, it's my pen. Khalas, you keep your pen. There we go. Simple as that. So the court cannot do anything else. The court cannot correct the wrong. The court is not there to correct the wrong. The court is there to follow a process. So if you have no evidence that the court can recognize, the court cannot go on what is true. The court can follow process. That's all. Which is, do you have a signed piece of paper in his handwriting? No. Do you have witnesses that he said these words? Yes. Who are the witnesses? A male and a female. This doesn't count. So even though the court believes you, even though I believe you, it doesn't mean anything. You can't force somebody. They can't take the property. Can't do that. Right? That's why going forward should always be very, very clear. Everything should always be very clear. And it avoids these feelings that aren't nice. Right? Allahu Akbar. قال محمد بهذا نأخذ من وجب له دين على إنسان إلى أجل فسأل أن يضع عنه ويعجل له ما بقي ما لم ينبغي ذلك لأنه يعجل قليلا بكثير دينا فكأنه يبيع قليلا نقدا بكثير دينا وهو قول عمر بن الخطاب وزيد بن ثابت وعبد الله بن عمر وهو قول أبي حنيفة. This is haram. Right? You cannot do that. And this former Dhahib agree on that. Obviously, it's basic, well-known things. So he said we adhere to this. Someone who owes a debt to someone at a specific time and then ask him to reduce the amount in exchange for space, hastening the time of the payment, what remains, then that ought not be done, because he would bring forward the payment of a little in place of a large debt. It is as if he was selling a little in cash for a large debt. That is the verdict of Umar ibn Khattab, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Umar, and it's the verdict of Imam Abu Hanifa, and we all agree that that is haram. باب الرجل يشتري الشعير بالحنطة. A man buying barley for wheat. So now this is for the Shafi'is, this is food being sold for food, but not the same category. For the Malikis, this is storable food being sold for storable food, but not in the same category. For the Hanafis, something sold in weight or volume, for something else in weight and volume, but it's not the same category. So it says, أخبرنا مالك حدثنا نافع أن سليمان بن يسار أخبره عن عبد الرحمن بن أسود ابن عبد يغوث فني علف دابته فقال لي غلامه خذ من حنطة أهلك فاشتري به شعيرا ولا تأخذ إلا مثلا بمثل. So Malik informed us, saying, Nafi narrated that Sulaiman ibn Yasar, one of the muftis of Medina, informed him that Abdurrahman ibn Aswad ibn Yaghuth ran out of fodder for his mount. So he said to his slave, take some of your family's wheat and buy barley with it, but only take like for like. Now, so when you're exchanging wheat for barley, does it have to be like for like? No, it does not. There's no obligation. So when you're exchanging these things, it just has to be immediate, that's all. Right? So this is like rupees for dollars. Any exchange rate you want to do, it doesn't matter. Any exchange rate you want to do, but it has to be immediate. You cannot say, I'm giving you X amount of rupees for X amount of dollars to be delivered next week. You cannot do that. It has to be immediate, right? Buying gold, buying jewelry, you have to do it immediately. You cannot say, I'm going to buy this ring and pay in installments. That is haram. You cannot do that. Or I'm paying now and I'm picking up the jewelry next week. You cannot do that. Meaning, when I say jewelry, I'm meaning gold and silver. قال محمد لسنا نرى بأسا بأن يشتري الرجل قفيزين من شعير بقفيز من حنطة يدا بيد. والحديث معروف في ذلك عن عبادة بن الصامت أنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الذهب بالذهب مثلا بمثل والفضة بالفضة مثلا بمثل ومثلا بمثل والحنطة بالحنطة مثلا بمثل والشعير بالشعير مثلا بمثل ولا بأس بأن يأخذ الذهب بالفضة والفضة أكثر ولا بأس أن يأخذ الحنطة بالشعير والشعير أكثر يدا بيد وفي ذلك أحاديث كثيرة معروفة وهو قول أبي حنيفة والعامة من فقهائنا. Right? So as you mentioned, Muhammad says, we see no harm in a man buying a measure of barley with a similar measure of wheat. Right? That's not what it says. It says, قفيزين من شعير بقفيز من حنطة. It says a man buying two measures. So there's a translation error here, right? It doesn't say that. So it says there's no harm in a man buying but يشتري قفيزين من شعير, two measures of barley, buying two measures, right? That's a very important, right? That's very important, okay? Because there's a serious mistake in the translation there, right? Two measures of barley for a similar measure of wheat, as long as it's immediate, hand to hand, meaning immediate. So exchanging grains, rice for wheat, doesn't matter what exchange rate, doesn't matter how you want to do it, right? The man who has the farmer that has wheat, rice, exchanging for the farmer that has wheat. You can do however you want. It doesn't matter as long as it's immediate, right? The well-known hadith on this is from Ubadah ibn Samit that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, "Gold for gold, like for like; silver for silver, like for like; wheat for wheat, like for like; barley for barley, like for like. There is no harm in taking gold for silver and extra silver. It's fine, right? Nor is there any harm in taking wheat for barley and extra barley. It's fine. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the ratio is. Hand to hand meaning immediate, as long as it's an on-the-spot transaction. There are many well-known hadith concerning that, and that is the verdict of Imam Abu Hanifa and our fuqaha in general, and all fuqaha in reality. Nobody, right? There's no issue there. باب الرجل يبيع الطعام نسيئة ثم يشتري بذلك الثمن شيئا آخر. A man who sells food on credit. Okay? So when he says food here, he means grain. Okay, the issue is grain. Ta'am doesn't mean food here, it means grain. On credit, the payment of which is deferred to a certain period. And then later he buys something else with the price. Okay, so I am buying grain, okay, from Adib, a man who sells food on credit. So Adib sells the grain to me. I'm going to pay him back later, which is deferred to a certain period. And then he later buys something else with that price. So now I owe Adib something. And so he uses the money that I owe him to buy something for myself. Can you see that? So here you could have a scenario, okay, where let's say, for example, we said that, for example, wheat being exchanged for what's it called? For rice has to be immediate, okay? So now Adib sold me wheat and I owe him money, okay? When the time came to pay him back, he said, just give me some rice instead. Okay? Can I do that? I can do that, right? But you can't agree on that. So Adib said, hey, I'm going to give you this wheat right now, but I need 2 tons of rice of this quality, of this make in 6 months in exchange for the wheat that I'm giving you now. You cannot do that because this is exchanging these things are wheat for rice. These are food or storable food or things that are sold in weight and volume. You can't do that. You could do that with a car. Car's not sold in volume. So I'm giving you these 2 cars, but you've got to give me this amount of wheat in 6 months. That's fine. Not a problem. But in the scenario where I say I'm giving you wheat for rice and you're going to give me rice next week or in 6 months, you cannot do that. So here the situation is we've created that, but only accidentally. So he sold me, he gave me the wheat and I owe him cash. I owe him money. When it comes the time to pay that, he says, you can just give me rice instead, meaning he's going to now use the money that I owe him to buy rice from me. So at the end of this day, we've exchanged wheat for rice with a delay, but that wasn't agreed upon to begin with. Does that make sense? We didn't agree upon that. So if we agreed upon that at the beginning, that would be interest. Otherwise, it's not. It's fine. It's just at the end, right? So that's like I borrowed $100 from Adib, okay? And I saw him in England. So I said, Adib, can I just give you, can I give you just like 80 pounds instead? He's like, sure, that's fine. Right? So, but if we had agreed that he's gonna give me $100 and I'm gonna in 2 weeks I'm gonna give him £80, you can't do that. That's haram, right? But I just borrowed some money from him, and then at the end I happen to pay him back in something else. That's not a problem. Okay. So he says, أخبرنا مالك حدثنا أبو الزناد عن سعيد المسيب وسليمان بن يسار كان يكرهان أن يبيع رجل طعاما إلى أجل بذهب ثم يشتري بذلك ذهب تمرا قبل أن يقبضها. Right? They didn't used to like that. Right? So Malik informed us that Abu Zinad narrated that Sa'id ibn Musayyib and Sulaiman ibn Sa'id used to dislike a man selling food, meaning grain, on delayed terms for gold to be paid later, and then buying dates with the gold before taking possession. See the scenario? So now it's like exchanging two things that have to be done immediately. And so you could not buy, you can't, because they're both in the category of food, or at least storable food, you cannot exchange, what was it? Grain for dates, right? So now even accidentally, at the end, when you say, okay, now give me the gold, right? And they say, hey, can I just give you these dates instead, right? They did not like that. قال محمد ولا نحن لا نرى بأس بأن يشتري بها تمرا قبل أن يقبضها إذا كان التمر بعينه ولم يكن دينا, right? The issue is that it's agreed upon like that. وقد ذكر هذا القول لسعيد بن جبير فلم يرى شيئا وقال لا بأس به وهو قول أبي حنيفة والعامة من فقهائنا, right? So here Imam Muhammad says we do not see any harm in buying dates with it before taking possession of it if the dates are actual and not a debt. What does that mean? That means if it was a debt, I am giving you dates and I'm giving you wheat and you owe me dates. That's riba because we agreed on that. As opposed to, oh, by the way, I owe you this money. Can I just give you these dates instead? That's fine. So that's exactly the same scenario that I mentioned. I borrow $100 or I owe you $100, right? I bought a car and I'm paying installments. The last installment was $100. We're both in Pakistan. Say, hey, can I give you these rupees instead? That's fine, right? Even though if I said, even though if you said, hey, I'm going to exchange the money you owe me for rupees that you owe me, you can't do that. So let's say, for example, I owe you $100. Say, hey, can I just convert that to rupees so that you owe me rupees instead? You can't do that because that's a debt now. But if I just give you rupees right now, that's fine. Does that make sense, Adib? You following? Adib, you there? Okay. Okay, inshallah. Okay, we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.